Hey, welcome back to Faith and Focus. And this week we are looking at an old video from a motivational speech that Matthew McConaughey gave probably even longer ago. This is something that we talked about over on the TSA Weekly. We watched the video there, so we're not going to watch it again here. So if you missed the video itself, make sure you head over to the TSA Weekly episode from this week in order to see the full video. So we talked about a lot of things in regards to business and stuff like that over there as far as what I was thinking about what Matthew was saying. But over here, as always, I want to dive in a little bit more into the faith side of things. But before we dive into this, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a tutorial or upload. Okay, so there were a lot of topics over there, and I'm not going to be able to bring all of them over here, but there were a few that really stuck out that I kind of made notes for that I thought, these are really important things to talk about here. And overarching in that video, one of the things he was talking about is knowing our identity, finding our identity. And he was talking about how it is so difficult for us to know our identity. And a lot of times when we're going and trying to build better routines, for example, or find some level of success, whatever it is that we might be working towards, that big G goal, we feel this level of overwhelm. And part of that is because when we don't break things down into bite-sized pieces, things that feel achievable, we're automatically going to feel overwhelmed, right? But he also talked about the fact that sometimes it's because we don't truly know who we are. And over there, we were talking about how, maybe we don't clearly know who we are, but we know who we're not. And that can help us to subtract some things from our lives first so that we make space for figuring out who we are and finding that identity. And I totally agree with that. But I think it's important to note here on Faith and Focus that while we may not know our earthly identity quite as clearly, we may not know exactly who we want to be or who we are, we know as Christ followers, as Jesus followers, we know our identity. I know that I am a daughter of Christ, and I know that you are a child of God. And that is so much more important than any of the identities that we might find here on earth, right? And by identities, I mean things like our roles in life, I think. I mean, he didn't specifically say that, but to me, it's like part of it is your roles in life, whether you are a business owner, a wife, a daughter, a mom, a sister, all of those things. But also to a point like whether you are kind or patient or consistent or, those types of identities, those types of things, those qualities, those values that we hold dear. And I think it's so important to remember, especially in those times when we don't feel successful. But honestly, as I think about it, maybe not especially, because I think this is just as important in those times when we do feel successful, that we remember our identity in Christ, that we remember that our successes are not things that we achieved alone. I mean, yes, we may have had help from people here on earth, but we absolutely had help from God, right? Whether it's that he gave us the skill set, the talent, the inspiration, the motivation, whatever it might be to pursue that thing. Obviously, that came from God. But also when we have our down days, which we do, whether we are successful or not yet, when we have those down days, we know that we can go to God to help lift us up. And I think it's important to remember that whether we ever find that success here on earth or not, it doesn't change your identity. Your identity is completely unchangeable. It is 100% firm in the love and grace of God. You will never stop being a child of God because you do find success or don't find success. And I think that is so comforting and so freeing. And we see this in the Bible too. In John 1, verse 12, it says, "But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God." So assuming that you're here and you're watching this because you are a follower of Jesus, because you do believe and you have accepted that gift, you have accepted that grace, then you are a child of God, and that is unchangeable, regardless of your circumstances here on earth, regardless of your success or lack thereof, or lack of perceived success. No matter where you fall right now in that success spectrum, whether you are successful and you don't feel it, or you feel successful but you're actually not yet, it doesn't matter. Your identity is secure. But it's not always easy to feel that and to remember that, especially in those hard days. But, even in those really good days. And this is why I think it is so incredibly vital. And we've talked about this before, but it is so vital that a part of our routine, I personally think ideally our morning routine, because the day can get away from us. So if we don't make it one of the first things that we do, spending time with God, spending time in prayer, grounding our identity on a daily basis in that knowledge that we are a child of God, in God's grace, in God's love. When we do that every single day, we give ourselves the ability to live in that identity regardless of our circumstances, regardless of what comes at us. We are prepared. We are kind of putting on that armor of God, right? We are preparing ourselves for the disappointments and frustrations that come along with failure. And honestly, in this day and age, sometimes the personal attacks that we may also get online just for showing up in a certain way. But I think it also prepares us to be the right kind of successful, meaning that we don't let our successes go to our heads, and we don't let it create ego for ourselves and turn us into a not godly example. We don't let it turn ourselves into a prideful, greedy, fill in the blank with your own adjective there, that we make sure that our success is grounded in the knowledge that it is from God. And we have that gratitude that He gave us all of the things that we have achieved. And it doesn't negate the fact that we've worked hard to achieve those things. He doesn't just hand it to us, right? We wouldn't appreciate it if He did. But He gives us the ability, the skill set, the motivation, all the things we talked about at the beginning. He has given us those things and continually gives them to us when we go to Him and ask for them, so that we can work hard and achieve those successes. And another thing that he mentioned over in that video that I talked about on TSA Weekly is the fact that I loved that he talked about the importance of, doing it, is what he said, doing the things that we do out of choice, not out of obligation or because somebody is shoulding us. And by somebody, I include you and me. Like, we should not should ourselves either. We're doing these things because we choose them and all of that. And agree, I totally think that is true. But one thing that I would add over here is that, yes, it matters that we choose things that we do in our business and in our lives because they matter to us. But it also matters that we look to God and ask Him, well, what is the path you want me on? What is your will for me? Because yes, we want to choose it because it matters to us, but we also want to make sure that we are aligning our desires and what we want, our dreams, with God's will for us, because we trust that ultimately the path He is leading us on is the one that is best for us. It's the one that we are meant to live. The last thing that I'm going to bring up here, he talked also about the importance of shutting off screens and face-to-face connection and contact with people. And this is one that can be really challenging for me as a business owner because my entire business is online and it can be completely online. I don't need to have any face-to-face interaction with anyone in order to run my business and be successful, right? But it is so important to me, even if it's not in a client way, for me to be connecting face-to-face with other business owners and ideally, in a lot of cases, other Christian business owners, for that sense of community, for that inspiration, and for that support and encouragement that we all need along the way. And actually, about a year ago, one of my friends that I met locally in one of those Christian business groups, she just felt super motivated and she decided, you know what, we're going to do a business retreat. And so she planned the whole thing. I helped her with a few things here and there, but she planned a whole retreat for us to go up to the mountains, and there was a small group of us that went up there, and we stayed in an Airbnb, and it was just so nice to connect with other Christian business owners on that kind of level, to get away from the grind, to slow things down a little bit, and just have community with each other. And actually, we're talking about doing another one again in like a month or so. And I'm really looking forward to it. Last year when we did it, I filmed one of my podcast episodes from up there. So maybe I'll do the same depending on the setup and all that good stuff, because it's always nice to have a little change of scenery. But I just think that it's so important to have that connection. And I totally agree with what Matthew was saying there. We need, especially as our society nowadays, we're so tied to screens, and we need to be better about being intentional about turning them off, shutting the laptop, and going and spending time with other people, any people, face to face, but especially I think for us as Christian business owners, other Christian business owners, so that we have that sense of community and support and encouragement, and so that we can be that for others as well. If you have any thoughts on anything that we just talked about, or maybe something that you saw in the video over on TSA Weekly that I didn't mention here, let me know those in the comments. I hope that this episode inspired and encouraged you. And if it did, please share it with a fellow Christian business owner who might need the same encouragement. Thanks for being here, and God bless.